Okay, so we're looking forward as well to listen to the response by Pierre Boulez, which you are going to perform. Ensemble Intercontemporain has a lot of Pierre Boulez pieces in its repertoire. How did you receive this very masterpiece to be performed in Moscow?
It's a piece that has, I would say, like no other work in our history, really defined our DNA. So this is like what the Saint Matthew Passion would be for period music orchestras. For us, it's Repon for many reasons, because it has been composed by the founder of the ensemble, Pierre Boulez, more than 40 years ago, and it's an adventurous work, and it features exactly the size of the ensemble, which is our 31 players that we have. It's an ensemble that is much bigger than other formations that you can find in different places in the world. So he really tailored this work to the size of the ensemble, and now having again a fresh look at the score is stunning, because I can say that Repon is a work where we always see when we perform it, we see Pierre still directing it.
There is another aspect we wanted to ask you about. Live electronics provided by IRCAM. Can you tell some words about this aspect of performing?
The electronics here really, really work as an extension of the real instruments, the acoustic instruments. I myself, also being a composer, have not worked extensively with electronics, because I never really personally found the burning reason to add electronics, because I would love to explore, I'm speaking about myself, to explore how I can extend the existing sounds within an ensemble or an orchestra. With Repon, it sounds as fresh and spontaneous as it did when it was created. Though one thing has changed, and I will always remember the stories and Pierre talking about it himself. The bar, when for the first time after the big introduction of the piece, the soloists enter. That's the first time the electronics also work with this big one sound effect. In the past, it was not quite sure if the electronics really worked in a performance, so you always saw Pierre's hand being, I wouldn't say shaking, but he held his breath when he gave that upbeat to when the soloists are launched and the electronics are happening, and of course, it always worked. Nowadays, it is basically knocking on wood. It's guaranteed that the electronics are happening, but that was not always 100% guaranteed in the past. So this bar, when the electronics are launched in the live performance, was always a very, very sensitive moment. So this is obviously not the case anymore because of the backups. IRCAM also considers that piece to be their DNA. So it really also fuses and merges the both institutions, IRCAM for the electronics and the ensemble for the acoustic part of this wonderful adventure that it always is.
And Pierre Boulez is a huge and even frightening figure for many musicians and music lovers. And we know he was tough and uncompromising, but I know that you have a lot of warm memories about him. So what was this person like?
He was most uncompromising with himself, to say that. And that's why he also was expecting from any musician, in whatever capacity that crossed his path, would have the same devotion and seriousness about music. Pierre Boulez was really the artist that took the information of what's written in the score for granted. He was one of the absolute major advocates of the score, and not of his style or his aesthetic or what he liked. He would never say, second trombone, play a little louder because I like the sound of the chord, how it comes out. If you do that, he needed to find the reasoning for that. And he had a beautiful way, and a very gentle way, to convey that to an orchestra. We spent a lot of time in his later years, and every time I was much younger, when I put on a new major work of the repertoire that he so knew inside and outside, like Second Viennese School or even Debussy, Ravel, Bartok, I visited him mostly in Baden-Baden in Germany, less in Paris. And we spent long afternoons on the couch next to each other, sitting over the scores. and sharing insight. And he asked me a lot of questions. He was never teaching or give you the impression that he taught you, coming from his perspective of what he knew and all the experience that he had. He founded the ensemble. He founded IRCAM. He founded the Cité de la Musique in Paris. He was responsible for the beautiful concert hall that we have in Paris. Philharmonie has been built, but he didn't build it for himself. He built all these houses for us to live in and maximize our creativity, our potential. And this is Pierre Boulez. Yes, with the power of his political impact that he had in the country and worldwide later on. And that really is Pierre Boulez, the mentor, but also the wonderful friend that I remember and will always do.
A little question about the Moscow program. For sure, we have Ripon, we have your piece since you're a composer, and the great one, and another two pieces by Varese and by Jan Robin. Can you explain why did you choose them?
I think it's a program that very represents where we are now with what we want to share with an audience. Of course, Ripon as the second half, and there was an interest, obviously, from the presenter, from the Philharmonie in Moscow, to have one of my pieces there. And I think we wanted to go for a lighter first side, so not the first half, so not have a full ensemble being involved for the first half, but just really featuring our musicians as soloists. And that's what they are. It's an ensemble of soloists. It's not an orchestra. It's not a chamber orchestra. They are soloists that come together and form this incredible entity of an instrument when they decide to play together. So I choose the trio because it's a very recent piece of mine. It's a piece that I've written here in New York City in the darkest of all COVID times in last May, I think, or summer, late spring, so exactly a year ago, more or less. And this all has flown into that music. So I think it's a piece that also really tells where I am as an author, as a composer nowadays. So I've suggested that piece. Then, as we have IRCAM on board and in the team, it was a natural choice to employ one more work that features the electronics of IRCAM, and there's wonderful French composer Jan Robin, who wrote this crazy piece for contrabass clarinet that it gives you the feeling you're attending a rock concert. People will sit there with their jaws dropped, I promise you. It's wild. It's so good. It's wonderful. And the Varese goes back to also our idea that the ensemble always tries to go back to the classics of the 20th century. So what we do is we're very much in the now, the today, but always looking back at our heritage, which is the repertoire of the 20th century, which Varese represents beautifully, and looking forward with the pieces that we commission or composers that we follow, composers that we commission. So in that case, I think it's a beautiful garden of diversity of sounds, and I think it will be definitely, triggering your palates and bring something maybe to Moscow that we haven't heard, or not to that extent.
How do you think, does it so important to talk about new music?
Well, I'm doing it right now with you. Is it important? It's a question that I honestly can't answer, because I also don't want to. There's clearly a tendency nowadays that an audience and the presenters, maybe the presenters even more, like to have the artist closely associated with the artwork. Mm-hmm. I find that more even applied in music than in painting, like in the visual arts. I mean, there's not that many visual artists that are constantly talking about their work. And if there's a gallery of exhibition, a vernissage, then they will talk. No, they will not talk. They will stand there with a glass of champagne and smile or be grumpy or whatever they are. With us composers, there is a tendency to constantly have constant introductions, speak during a concert, speak before a concert, stay after the concert, speak, 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 speak. And yes, I like it. I like it because it shows that, we are human and we have an interest to communicate. So I'm very happy to do it if people think it's helpful to, also to create interest and to show people, look, it's a human person. Yeah, and I think that's very important. But sometimes it's only really is you take someone by the hand, like, just come into my garden. But here you are. I'll leave you alone. You have to look. You have to hear. You have to smell. You have to feel. I can't do that for you. So I'm very conscious about that. I don't want to tell people what to listen for or how they ideally should feel when they read a book or look at a painting or hear a piece of music. That's really up to you. But invite someone in. I mean, I opened the house, I opened the doors, but you have to explore. Because I think that's what every great piece of art has anyway, is it tells you something about you, the listener, and not about my intention. That's in the music. I don't really have a perfect sit there and listen and not explain anything. I think everyone with music is an equally qualified listener. The people that know nothing about it and people who know everything about it. The listening capacity is the same. It moves you or not. And it's okay to dismiss something too. We do it when we go to a museum, and it's very easy just to, don't like that painting, so you move to the next one. It's not even a big discussion. Then people sit in a concert and like, I really didn't like that second piece. And fine. I mean, what's the problem with saying that you like something better than the other work? So I think people should just not feel they're in church or something. It's not a ceremony. It's sharing something together. It's a dialogue. It's dialogue. So it's perfectly fine to have opinions, and people should speak about them. It's absolutely fine.
If you remember the November program, which was played in Moscow, which changed gradually, there were finally 8 pieces of maybe not of the same level, and some of them we knew very well, some of them we heard for the first time, but all of them were played with such passion. And if we trust the musicians, we try to keep it with all our hearts, and it really worked very well.
I really cannot believe that you're inviting us to come with Lafont. I mean, we're coming with full gear. I feel so good about it, and thank you also for obviously being part of making it possible. And I think Vladimir also, like, some in that org. It's wonderful. We're very, very much looking forward. And I'm not saying that because it's my role. We're so excited to go. No, we are really, really happy. We are really happy to come to Moscow and show you who we are. So looking forward.